Jonathan, this right here is the start of the podcast. Start it from this moment right here. All right. Charge On Podcast. Welcome back, Hayden. Good to have you again.
Good to be back.
With Pastor Wayne Bray. And I think we should just dive right into the deep end as we start the podcast for the 7th time now that the audience will not.
The Hayden Crumpton.
Do we have to call you the
I
Hayden
think
Crumpton?
so. The article is necessary.
No.
Just because of his size.
Let me just say, Greenville campus is killing it. Shouldn't we address this?
I mean, Greenville had almost 300 people at Easter.
Yes, and then week after,
I think we could have found
3 more people.
If you could,
Yeah, we could have found
I'm just
Come
telling you,
on.
I'd have been so mad at whoever counted that
For
they
sure.
didn't find 3 people.
I mean, there were at least 3 people in that plaza.
That's like the
about
year-
back. I mean, at
in
least.
the elevator, right?
Right,
Come on.
right.
But then even the week after, this was really cool. So they had
220?
well over 200. Yeah, so it was super encouraging. Anyway,
Glad to have the illustrious
Yes.
Hayden Crompton back. I will say the hardest thing for Hayden preaching at Upstate Church Greenville is that most of the time, Paul Maland, how do you say their last name, Maland or Maland?
I think it's Milan.
Paul Maland does the host there. And let me just tell you something. His arms are huge.
They call him 2 guns. I mean, he's just.
He
Paul's
literally
got-
looks like he has 2 legs coming out of his shoulders.
it's a very impressive host time.
So when you got to get up to preach after that, you automatically feel a little.
Does he hold the microphone like this?
I mean, crushes it. He's
He
like,
doesn't even have to.
he's like, if you need help finding the bathrooms are that way. Yeah. And if you need me, I'll be sitting right there. I'm like, I was there a couple weeks ago, and number one, man, it was so cool for me to be at Greenville and just see how well everything flowed. The team was great. Everybody was welcoming. But Paul got up on stage before I preached to do the host time. And I've never felt so insecure in my life. I was like, I'm going to go to the back real quick, do 200 push-ups, come back, and hope that my arms are somehow as miraculously big as Paul's. Anyway.
And I've had people personally come to me and say their experience with taking their children to the kids area has been unreal.
Shout out Sarah Tillery.
Sarah's amazing.
Yeah.
So anyway, the team's killing it.
Man.
Doing a great job.
Glad to have you, bro. Yeah.
Me too.
I want to jump right into the deep end on this podcast, which is where you, Pastor Wayne, jumped Monday afternoon on social media.
With a lot of other pastors.
For sure,
I was
yeah.
not alone.
If anybody hadn't seen it at this point, I think there's a good question to be asked. Let's set up the context. I guess Sunday night, President Donald Trump shares a meme, which let's just concede, President Trump's big into the meme game. All right. As you get older, you can kind of get more invested in the technology, and you can just tell at like midnight, old Donnie's on the edge of his bed retweeting stuff. And he retweeted this meme where it appeared as if he were a Messiah figure with light coming out of his hands, healing someone
In an ancient robe.
in an ancient robe
With angel figures in the background.
maybe some demons in the background as well, and maybe an Apache helicopter. I'm not really sure. There was a lot going on in the picture. But people immediately, and obviously, I would say even Trump's biggest base of supporters, which is evangelical Christians, like whiplashed on this. They were like, this is not cool. And you just kind of jumped into the deep end and posted something that was saying, hey, listen, we always respect politicians and respect the authorities, but this is not cool. There's only one Lord, one name. So I just want to open with a big question. You guys can kind of respond accordingly, however you want to. But let's assume that most of the people who are going to listen to this podcast in some level want the president to succeed, or maybe even a step further voted for him as based on some convictions they have. How would you disciple Christians in this area? How would you say Christians should respond when politicians who they may even align with or support do something, let's just say, stupid?
Go ahead, Hayden.
Man, yeah, open it right up. I think that the first thing you think of is like, there's definitely a lordship issue there. And like, let's take it back to us. Romans 13 reminds us to pray for those who the Lord's put in our in government, right? Like we're called to pray. And I think somebody can talk a lot about Jesus and almost align themselves in proximity with him, but without ever knowing him truly as Lord and Savior. So, I mean, that was like a big indicator there. So like on a Christian standpoint, I've got to be reminded of like what my job is to do is to bow the knee to Jesus, is still to continue to pray for those that are in government with us, but then also not call out what evil is evil and don't call what what is evil good,
Right.
And so,
That's right.
coming to defense, like that's pretty hard to defend, right? And
For sure.
the first default you have to do is acknowledge that it's wrong, and then come back in to just pray that God would soften hearts, and that this wouldn't lead to any more division, and hopefully, like, he would eventually come to know Jesus as Lord.
You may be onto something there, because I do believe I saw some people's first instinct is to defend, which is an ironic
Defense or condemnation.
Yeah, one or the other. But just to call balls and strikes here, right, wrong. I think there are a lot of people whose first instinct, had the president been of another political party, would have been condemnation. Their first instinct, because again, they support him in some way, or at least want him to succeed, is defense. And I just think it's okay not to defend, to say we don't have to defend things that are dumb or stupid or anti-biblical. You submitted a Facebook post. So what was your hope in getting people to just understand what's happening?
So general principles, we approach it as a pastor. So we're not podcasters. We do a podcast.
I know, we're podcasters now, bro.
So I want to lay the groundwork for this. So I want you to think about it like this. I want to, and I said this on the update, I want to assume the best without ignoring the worst.
It's a really good way to put it.
And it's important, because a lot of people ignored the worst.
Yeah.
They did assume the best. They totally ignored the worst. And you can't choose. You have to do both. And so that's, as a pastor, my responsibility is not to ignore James Tallarico, JT as I call him.
JT, y'all are big boys.
Well, I totally, no, I just can't. I'm learning to pronounce Tallarico.
I think you're doing a great job.
Doing better. JT out in Texas, so Democrat. A while back, I got criticized by a couple people privately, none publicly, but I had a couple people send me a message basically saying, not members of our church, let me be clear, that this is great. No, none of our membership wrote it. But some people felt like I shouldn't have criticized the Texas senator candidate like that. He was a heretic.
Right.
So he's unbiblical. He was not speaking the truth. My responsibility, your responsibilities as pastors, is to call out heresy.
Yeah.
And so I feel like it's a biblical responsibility of a shepherd to take care of the sheep. So that's what we were doing then. I would be a hypocrite then, no matter how I vote or what political party I'm for. I'd be a hypocrite then if Donald Trump then does something that is at least equally or in the same category of questionably heretical. I didn't at least say, hey guys, this is bonkers. This is bizarre.
Right.
This appears to be a messianic, statement.
Yeah.
It was confusing.
He later came back and said,
He did.
He said that, and this is actually not a defense, because I got something I could probably, it's worse that he doesn't know what it is maybe. He said he thought he was a doctor.
Correct.
Healing. He said, and I make people much better,
But to be fair, I updated it and I put a link in there, put his words so that he was defending himself. And that's when I actually, here's the thing that I do think is important for people, and I hope people watch this, because I think they need to really do some introspective thought. If our immediate thought is, that's AI, first of all, correct.
Yes. Clearly it was AI. I hope you know that it was not real. It was AI.
I was
indeed.
sitting with my dad that day, so my dad's immediate thought was, it's AI. And I tried to explain, and my dad's going to watch this.
Truly,
my dad's my dad's 83, and he understands AI. But I think that some people think because it's AI, it couldn't have been Donald Trump.
Competing things.
Donald Trump on his phone could produce an AI picture of himself. So that doesn't. So yes,
if it wasn't apostasy, I would right now go to ChatGPT and say, put Wayne Bray's face.
So conceding
that
it was an AI generated picture.
Correct.
That 100% true. But people were posting that as a comment, like that somehow was an answer that was a defense of Trump. Nobody was saying it wasn't AI generated. It was just that Trump had posted it. So I actually, the second time, posted on Truth Social, where he himself had posted the picture.
Let me ask you something I haven't considered.
People were saying, "Oh, this has to be the Democrats. This has to be," and so that's what I'm going back to. If we ignore the worst, that's where we're at fault. We have to not be guilty of. I told my dad when we were talking, and I don't want to get
Shout out,
radical.
Phil.
Yeah, I don't want to get radical and start, but I mean, I think we could easily drink the Kool-Aid to a point to where we're oblivious to our own, I don't want to say ignorance in an insulting way, but ignorance of our, how can I say it in a kind of way?
Bias?
Bias, that's a better word. We can be biased and unconsciously biased. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and do you think that, sorry to
No, you're good.
cut you off, do you think that is where a lot of the defense came in? It wasn't necessarily defending Trump, it was more defending like maybe the way people voted and like what their hope was for like through him and through like the Republican Party. Do you think that some Christians are even caught up in that tension?
Just hoping them for better.
Yeah, like
I do think people and I actually have a thought on that. I want to come back to. That's a really
Maybe that's
point.
the assuming the best. Too.
Yeah,
I like the assuming the best. I want to assume the best.
Super weird question that I don't know. I had not planned to ask this, but you said something made me think. And people are saying it's AI, it's AI. Do you think we probably shouldn't ignore that Trump is 80 years old?
No, almost.
Do you think maybe he doesn't know, like, sometimes how the social media, like, etiquette of that stuff? I mean, I don't know. It's just a super strange reality that he's like, look at this picture. I just want to.
I'm friends with some 80-year-olds on Facebook.
And they're not posting that?
Well, I don't know. Some of them post some wild stuff. It can be a little bit different.
Trump is pretty sharp, though.
Yeah. Evidently not sharp enough to not think that wasn't a doctor, though.
But I don't know, man. I don't want to get too far into people thinking I'm being weird about it because I promise I'm not being either pro or con by saying this. I promise you. But I will say I think sometimes he does things for various reasons.
Yeah.
And it may not be that he's necessarily being foolish. He could be doing things for shock factor. I don't know.
To your point, though, there's a you talked about James Talrico, and then you talked about Trump. There are two equal and opposite forces there, both equally destructive. One is heresy. One is that the person comes in the form as the guise of a Christian and says Jesus never said X. You can be a Christian and think this way. That's James Talrico is a heretic. The other is apostasy, though. And anytime somebody stands in the place that only Christ should stand, and whether President Trump thought that or not, it's still both equally are bad.
Yeah.
So you just have to call both what they are wrong.
Let me just even go this crazy because I think our culture's gotten to a point where this is unheard of, if not absurd, to even think is possible. Let's just hypothetically, I'm going to use just a random politician, like Marco Rubio. Let's just say Marco Rubio.
Don't you dare disparage
If I
Marco
could think
Rubio.
of a Democrat, I'd use a Democrat. So I'm not doing it because it's a political party.
Cory Booker.
Let's say Marco Rubio is the president in 4 years, and even if I wanted him to be president, speaking out against him, if he does something that's against the word of God, does not mean I wouldn't vote for him again the next election.
Right.
I think somehow on social media.
Or that you would.
Or that I would.
Right.
So it's not a pro-con, against, for. The fact of the matter is, if something is wrong, and if somebody says something that's contrary to the word of God, a Christian should say something, and we shouldn't be like debating, like, okay, this is not consistent with the word of God. Oh, but he's done a lot of good stuff for Christians. That's not what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. This is stupid.
Yeah.
That's what.
That's right. This in one instance is
this
dumb.
is what I'm talking about. This was not.
That's what it's called. It's called whataboutism. It's like, but what about X? But we're not talking about
Christians
X.
have to get back to. Let's talk about this particular issue that we're talking about. And this issue doesn't mean that we're for once for all time. We have a once for allism now.
That's right.
It's like now if we disagree with somebody on one issue,
it's cancel culture.
We cancel culture.
Yeah.
And so that's all I'm trying to say is I'm not canceling Trump. I'm not canceling anybody because of one thing, but we're not going to ignore
the one thing.
Yeah. We need to speak to it because that's engaging the culture.
Yeah.
Because if we don't, then our people, if we're shepherds, if our sheep see that and think it's okay,
right,
then we've not been effective and faithful.
And through engaging the culture and calling wrong, it's an easy way to remind people what the true hope is. And I know that's like that's on the table, but like our hope's not in politics.
Yeah.
It's not in a political figure.
On a shepherd level, that's a great point. I think there are two massive problems that evangelical Christians lend to politics and to our political conversation. I don't think this is just evangelical Christians that do this. I think it's probably more American culture at large, but two massive problems that started stirring in my head after the picture. One, I think we really have invested so much Messiah-level hope in politics that people are looking to political figures, political parties, politicians to be something they're not. And I think it takes something like a picture like that for you to be confronted with the reality that, oh no, Trump's really not that. But, you know, we really don't believe he's that Messiah, but we put a lot of hope into him to fix the republic or whatever. So I do think we're putting too much hope. That's one problem. Ben Sass said this a couple of days ago. He said that in 100 years we'll look back on this season, this time in history, and we won't even talk about politicians. And man, that was so so convicting, because how often do we think if we can just get this person elected, then things will be better? And truly, the course of history flows through them sometimes, but it's not about them.
Yeah.
The other problem that picture really brought to the surface is we have stripped our civic discourse of a certain level of intellect. Social media has done this, I think. You know, like what you did was you got on social media for an honest, good faith conversation, which I think you had.
And yeah, nobody was ugly.
No, and that's actually the rare case. I think social media has stripped down the public conversation to sound bites so much that it's scroll, it's post, it's click, it's like, that there's a certain level of intellect that's just stripped from it. So, you know, President Trump, who we want to pray for, who we want to, any politician. We prayed for President Biden, but President Trump shares that. All he's doing is participating in a culture of dialogue that the floor is really low on. Like we need to, Christians should really try to set an example of raising the bar of conversation. So I appreciate you doing what you did and raising the conversation a little bit.
Well, I encourage anybody that's watching or listening to do something. Search Ben Sass.
Man.
And if you just search his name on any YouTube channel or social media platform on Reels right now, and if you'll just do me a favor and forgive a few cuss words every now and then.
He's a Presbyterian.
Yeah. and I'm saying forgive him because he's literally going to die any day. I mean, you know, who knows?
Months, not weeks, not
weeks,
years.
not months, probably.
Yeah.
But I will say two things about him. He is probably one of the most authentically faith lived out, civic-minded, politically conscious Americans I've ever heard talk. Like he believes in our country. He
hopes the best for him.
He loves our country. I wish he could live longer.
Yeah, he's got pancreatic cancer. Is what's wrong with him. By the time they caught it, he said they were he was chock full of tumors.
This is the guy who's the president of University of Florida.
Yeah, but I do. He's a reminder to me when I talk about raising the level of conversation. Yeah. If you participate in the base level of political conversation, you should not expect to make much of a dent. Yeah. But if you listen to him, I think you could be challenged to what the level of our conversation should be, and even the level of respect we should have him. You know, I was watching a podcast with him a few days ago where he said he got in trouble with some voters in Nebraska because he didn't hate Democrats.
There's a spider.
Oh man,
can you believe that? That was really odd. In the middle of a podcast, there was
Jonathan
a spider.
hates spiders too.
In the middle
right
of the
here,
that was so awesome.
By my eye.
Yeah.
I was gonna say you're gonna turn
so
into Peter
crazy.
Parker, man.
Yeah, I'm about to.
Wow, Spider-Man. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
He was Ben Sass was in an interview with Ross Dudat.
Only on the Charge On podcast.
Man, I forget where we were going with this. I mean,
Ben Sass.
Yeah, but I can't remember what he said.
It was Nebraska. I'll tell you that.
He got in trouble with Nebraska voters because he said they were mad because he didn't hate Democrats enough.
Well,
and he said,
I was going to say something similar.
He said, I don't hate them.
Would you believe he said I don't want to speak out of turn. I think it was was it 80%? Or it was he said he had a majority of Democrat votes in Nebraska.
But people loved him, yeah.
And so,
because he was a reasonable guy.
He was reasonable and he had dialogue with people, but he's super conservative.
Right.
A very conservative Christian.
Yeah.
So the odd thing about guys like him is they are willing to have dialogue. And then, what made me think about it is I was listening just before we came in to a reel of JT, James Tallarico, on a late night show, I think night before last or last night. And he was talking about his same old thing. It's the same old message that he has. And it's basically that Christians, evangelical Christians, have hijacked the messaging of political process.
Yeah, which is just a dumb argument, honestly.
And here's what he says. He says we've narrowed it down to 2 issues and all that. All of that to say, here's what he says. He says Americans don't care what you believe. He said don't tell me what you believe. He said, show me how you care, and then I'll tell you how you believe.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So what this is a social gospel. It's nothing
right.
new. You go back and study. It's been around for a century or two. The fact of the matter is it's nothing new, and he's just repackaged it, and he has a charismatic personality. But I said this to Brian and Wes just a little bit ago, but it's totally true. Grace without truth in our society is super attractive.
Okay.
It is attractive. Truth without grace is very ugly.
Right.
It is very ugly.
Right.
Truth with grace is refreshing,
radical,
and life-giving,
Yeah.
and radical. So it is what we need to provide. Nobody else will provide both, and
no other people is in position to do that.
So that's why we post.
That's
that
right.
We're going to speak truth. We're not going to argue.
Right.
We want to dialogue. We
Right.
want to be like Ben Sass. I don't want to argue. Ben.
Yeah, super freeing for us to know that's how we operate, and I think it's good for church members to hear. Maybe like we don't intend to run from things,
but we're also not going to endorse a candidate.
and we just want to shepherd people well. That's the aim. Yeah. Hey, speaking of shepherd people well, I'm gonna read Ephesians 2. I want to talk to you about how we've shepherded people toward unity in the body. You guys preached this on Sunday. And man, you had a reel going around Instagram. That junk was heat, dude. Did you see it?
I don't know if I did.
Man, it was great. You were fire. Therefore, remember that at one time you Gentiles in the flesh called the uncircumcision by what is called the circumcision. If you don't know what circumcision is, ask Pastor Wayne at wbray@upstatechurch.org. He would love to explain that. Remember that you were at that time separated from Christ, alienated from the commonwealth of Israel, and strangers to the covenants of promise, having no hope and without God in the world. But now in Christ Jesus, you who were once far off have been brought near by the blood of Christ, for he himself is our peace, who has made us both one and has broken down in his flesh the dividing wall of hostility by abolishing the law of commandments expressed in ordinances, that he might create in himself one new man in the place of two, so making peace. All right, I'm going to stop there. This passage is all about God bringing cosmic reconciliation, not vertically. So on Easter Sunday, we talked about how God creates peace between God and man. Today, we get to how the gospel starts to make peace between man and man, right? And how the gospel changes not just vertical relationships, but horizontal relationships. I think he starts in an interesting place there. I just want to ask you guys what you guys think about it. He says, therefore, remember that at one time, you Gentiles in the flesh were separated from Christ. He starts the passage by saying, remember that you used to be separated from Christ at one time. How does remembering who we were before we met Christ affect the way we treat people in our daily life?
Well, man, and even in the language, like Sunday, I started with trying to just let everyone in the room feel what it would have felt like had we been, as Greeks or Romans or Gentiles, like walking into the temple. Mm-hmm. There was literally a sign outside the temple that would have said, no foreigner can cross this barrier, and he who does is ensuring his own death, or like his death is on his hands. And so, like, for Paul to say, remember, I mean, in some ways, he's even like almost maybe even reminded himself of the fact that even right after Jesus came back to life, the gospel didn't go out to the Gentiles right then and there.
Right.
I mean, it took Acts chapter 10. I mean, you got 10 years of the gospel changing Jews, but like it took a little while before God opened it up, right? And so, like, to remember, I think it's just to show just how hopeless we really were. Yeah. And you have the verses 1 through 10 where it's, I'm dead in my trespasses and sins, and if that's not a barrier enough, I wasn't a part of Israel. Yeah, like, so I was completely an outsider. So, I mean, the gospel, remembering the gospel is remembering that God, it's the story of God bringing outsiders in every single time.
That's a good point.
I think the 2 weeks were cool, and I'm sure you guys did this. Well, you didn't preach it, did the same thing, though. But so first week on Easter, we talked about chapter 2, verse 1 through 10, and so we were dead in our trespasses and sin. So what I did is I basically said that was the foundation. Well, the result of that was the wall that divided us.
Right.
So then the being alive in Christ, the result of that was the cross that unites us. So it was almost like part one, part two in a lot of ways. And so, yeah, you can't know why, what's the benefit of salvation in Christ if you forget who you were and where you were before. So I think that's the benefit.
This conversation always makes me think of something my grandmother used to say, and it was just such a for people who didn't know my grandmother, it would have probably been a weird thing to say. My grandma was an immensely godly woman. She said 2 cuss words that I heard in 30 years, and they were not bad. They were not the bad cuss words, they were the ones that most people would say, "Oh, that's not really a cuss word." And she would say it, and when she said it, I remember both times distinctly. She just broke down in tears, sobbing because of her sin. Right. So
are you saying it's a sin to cuss?
We'll talk about that later.
That's what Jesus for.
But when she was the kind of person who. Holy was a word that I would use to describe her. She was a godly woman. But anytime she would see somebody who was far from God by the world standards, like a drug addict or a homeless person who's struggling, or what she would say, or even if she heard somebody who had just fallen into sin, she would always say, "Save the grace of God, go I."
Right.
Which was such a weird thing for me to hear her say, because I'd be like, Muddy, I really don't think that's true. Like, save the grace of God, go I, or I'd be a drug addict. I'm like, have you ever done drugs? Like, it's just not true. But she just had this divine, I think, gift that God gave her to recognize, apart from Christ, I'm not any better than anybody. So when he starts this as remember, who you were before Christ, I think probably what he's getting at is the thing that is most unbecoming of a Christian's pride. Is the idea that you are better than anybody at any given point. And the thing that's most Christ-like of anyone is to realize, at the foot of the cross, I'm not any better than anybody. Doesn't matter what family I come from. Doesn't matter how well I was behaved in high school. I'm a sinner just like anyone else, right?
Yeah. Well, everything's about walls. So sin divides us in every category. Go back to Genesis 3. It divided man and woman in the beginning.
Right.
That's a lot of people may think it's totally just because they married the wrong person or it's isolated their own occasion. All you got to do is read Genesis 3. God literally made woman desire the man's position, authority.
That's right.
Definitely
Conflict.
Contention, conflict.
Put up a wall.
It's totally a wall dividing man and woman, period, because of sin.
Yeah.
So there's a wall dividing us in every category because of sin.
That's a good way to think of it.
The only way to overcome that wall is to find Christ and allow him to tear down the wall. So even though this text is in particular talking about Jews and Gentiles,
right?
And so what I did is I tried to present it certainly from that perspective, but I even tied it to small groups. I shout out small groups. I really made it a lot about our internal community and fellowship and connection within the body of Christ. Because here's one of the quotes, natural drift never leads to supernatural development.
Right.
Our natural drift is disconnection.
Right.
We're going to naturally disconnect. The walls naturally divide us.
And I think, too, to that, I think sometimes union with Christ always produces unity in the church, but I think we have traded what unity is with uniformity. And so we've settled for less than the best that God actually offers, right? So, you just imagine how many churches that might even be in a good place, they might be mission focused, but not experiencing true unity where it's everyone's equal at the foot of the cross. You're almost selling yourself short.
Yeah.
And we were talking after on Sunday, there was a few guys hanging around that knew the locker room. They had the locker room experience. They played ball in college and stuff. And one of the guys said, this just reminds me at the foot of the cross, unity is like in a locker room where you have guys from different backgrounds, different socioeconomic
all
statuses.
On the same team.
Yeah, different languages, all the different things. They're on the same team. They wear the same uniform, but they're focused on the same goal. And a healthy team, they're going to lay aside their preferences for trophies or like, I guess, awards, and they're going to fight for the mission of that team to move the ball forward. And I just love that picture because at the foot of the cross, like it gets us to that place of true unity to move that mission forward.
You talked about small groups. I want to pin that because I want to come back to it in just a second because I feel like there's some stuff to flesh out there. In what way is, and maybe I'm asking a question, maybe I'm making a statement. I don't know. Y'all can tell me after I say it. Sometimes you start a sentence and you don't know where it's going to end.
Yeah.
In some ways, I think unity is really only seen when people start to grow in spiritual maturity. Because you don't see whether somebody's mature or whether somebody wants to walk in unity until they don't get their way.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
True.
unity is easy if everybody's doing what you want to do. But when unity is hard, when you're doing things different.
Right.
I think that's true even in Paul's life. Just studying this week, I think he became, the Bible says, able to be all things to all people. He was able to walk in unity with multiple people, but that's a result of how he became spiritually mature. This was mind-blowing. I'd never kind of seen it before, but Paul grew in the gospel. The gospel, we think Apostle Paul, he was a godly man. People like him don't grow in the gospel. No, the gospel matured him as he went and made him more able to walk in unity with people. You can go read 1 Corinthians 15, Ephesians 3, and 1 Timothy 1. Have y'all ever read this? It's called the progression of grace, where he says, I'm the least of all the apostles in 1 Corinthians. Then like 10 years later, he says, I'm the least of all the saints. And in 1 Timothy, he says, I'm the worst of all sinners. So it's like the more he grows, the more humble he is. And the more humble he is, the more he's able to just be friends with anybody and get along. I do think maybe you can explain
Maybe
how
what we were talking about megachurch pastors earlier.
Sorry. You explain this a little bit. How have you seen the spiritual maturity of people, maybe even people at our church, aid the unity of our church? Because we're a super unified church.
Yeah.
But that's a decision people have made. Like, people decide to walk in unity. So how has the spiritual maturity of Upstate Church helped us to walk in unity?
I mean, without it, we wouldn't be on mission. I think unity is like primary. It's not a good idea. It's not. It's not one of the tools in the tool chest. It's
right.
It's step number one. So as far as 11 years ago, anybody that was on the search team or even part of the initial leadership would have, I think, be super aware. That was my first thing, was to work on, get us all on the same page, same task, one mission, one, expectation and goal, headed one direction. Because if you're not unified in the idea of what we're actually trying to achieve, and what the goal is, what the mission, the vision, the values are, then you're going 18 different ways.
Right.
Even if you're all well-meaning. Everybody can be good people, care about Jesus, love the Lord. But if you're going 20 ways, you're like cats with your tails back. And you're not going to do anything effective. So, I mean, I don't know. So, I don't know if that answers your question. I think our church is, they're not perfect. We have, certainly, including us, people who get it wrong sometimes. But by and large, super godly people who are mature in the Lord, and it is clear when we go through really some big decisions that other people are just like, how did that not shake the foundations, and it's just like, well, our church is just really unified. That's right. I think it's just spiritual maturity for sure.
What does it look like for spirit? What's an example of somebody who's spiritually mature laying aside preference for unity? I mean, are we just talking about like how loud the music is? Because sometimes I think there's small issues of preference. Sometimes I think people lay aside bigger issues of preference for the sake of the mission. I just want to encourage that in people.
Well, let me ask you, because at Haywood, you guys weren't remodeled for a long time. And you grew like crazy.
I actually wasn't even thinking
about
it.
The roof fell in, and now you're in a gymnasium. You had 770-something last week, and that was after you've sent out now a campus that's running 210, 220. Right. So, together, y'all would actually run now 1,000?
1,000 probably, yeah.
So, I'd say that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And that's after Roof falls
There
in.
may be a good there may be a good example of that though. Spiritual maturity expressing itself through unity. I would bet that as we voted to sell that building, there were people who voted in support of what they thought God was doing, whose preference it was not to sell the building.
Sure.
I don't know that I wouldn't preferentially have fallen into that category.
Right,
you know?
your heart, yeah.
I mean, just in a perfect world, all
Right.
things perfect. But spiritual maturity is when you lay aside preference for the sake of the mission, and it was just clear. And so there are people in that room who, when we met and talked with people who Haywood, who I would say laid aside preference. But that's when you see spiritual maturity. Spiritual maturity. I'll give you another example. That we are people who are spiritually mature, I think, who are just super forgiving of their pastors, because we're not perfect.
Right.
But there are people who choose unity in their spiritual maturity when we don't do exactly as good as we could have done as pastors. I had somebody call me on the phone one time and they say, while I've got you, I just want to tell you something. You said X, and that really hurt my feelings. And when they told me that, I was like, yeah, I can see how that hurt your feelings. I was actually a jerk. Please forgive me. And she said, I've already forgiven you. Spiritual maturity is expressed when you don't get your way and you still say, I'm going to pursue unity.
Right.
That was awesome. Did you have I saw Jonathan at the corner of my eye.
Yeah, I was just thinking about spiritual maturity leading to unity. The thing that sticks out to me is like if you list off right now all of the fruits of the Spirit, which one of those would create disunity?
Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, gentleness, self-control.
Goodness, faithfulness.
Goodness and faithfulness.
Yeah. But it's like making sure that you're pursuing that filled with the Spirit. Like you're not going to be seeking disunity by any means.
That's right. That's a good word.
And you're continuing to progress towards it. It's like what you said with Paul. Like the more he followed Jesus, the less he liked himself. And then I even like a simple thing with like music or small groups or something like that. It's one thing to maybe not prefer a certain song, but then if you continue to mature, you're going to see yourself. You may not prefer it right now, but then you're going to see yourself singing it down the road. Then you're going to see yourself worshiping down the road.
You want to know what's really funny? Like a perfect example of that is so we're going back to when we moved to the convention center. We're going to a 10 and an 11:30 service, and so there are some people from our 8:30 who are going to be shifted to the 11:30 service, and because they prefer the 8:30, they've not been able to do the modern worship deal. And these people, I was talking to people the other day, when they came to our church, they came from another church, very traditional, kind of high church. They were like, now just know, we're not modern worship people.
Right.
But they came, they were a part of what God called them to. And the guy told me the other day, he said, you know what I'm most excited about going back to convention center? He said, since we lose that 8:30, I'm going to go to 11:30. I'm going to be listening to that modern worship. He said, but I'm not a modern worship guy. I said,
But that's
you
it,
grew
though.
it. He
That's
grew into it.
And
Yeah.
I think you have to be united in the mission, though. Like if you're not, you're going to continue to pick up your preferences, or you're going to continue to have your expectations hurt.
That's right.
Or not met, and then you're just going to walk around almost like an Eeyore.
That's right.
I mean?
Yeah.
Just
And-
pout.
Eeyore syndrome.
And
Yeah,
I'll
really.
just say this, man. There's a lot of churches who have won the fight of their preferences, and they have no little kids running the
Right.
halls, and their baptism waters haven't
Never full.
flowed
Yeah.
for a year or 5 or 10, and they've won.
Yeah. And what is it? What did it cost you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
just won the fight of preferences.
won the fight of
Lost-
preference.
Lost the mission.
They've lost the mission entirely, and they've lost the presence of God in their church, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so the Spirit of God's not working. So, yeah, give me purpose over preference every day of the week.
That's good.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny you say that too. Is like Revelation 2, when he's talking to the church in Ephesus, he reminds us to get back to the first love. Like that's what guards the mission and what guards like not picking your preferences back up. Like if I can go back to Jesus and remember what he did and like how he saved me and all the things about what the gospel does, like that's what will keep you engaged.
Yeah.
I think.
It's good. Hey, we've been talking a while, and I know we got some other stuff to do. I want to ask you one more question, and maybe this is actually perfect that we have. For people who don't know, Hayden is our small groups guy, so I'd like you to answer this too. But for both of you, answer this question. You talked about plugging in. What does it really mean to belong to the people of God? Because this passage is about how God makes a people for himself. That's what the church is. The church is the people of God who live on mission for God. What does it really mean to belong to the people of God? And let's drill down a little bit deeper before you guys answer. We're, by all categories, we're a megachurch. And so there are a lot of people who have the ability to come to our church Sunday after Sunday, and they can come in and they can come out. And if they want to, they can be here and not belong. They can come and not be invested. What does it mean for people who are listening? Maybe, and if you had like 60 seconds with a church member who's just going in and out, and you got to pastor them and say, hey, I want you to belong to the people of God. Mm-hmm. What does it mean to belong to the people of God?
Belonging is never accidental.
Okay. You have to do it on purpose.
Have to do it on purpose. Mm-hmm. And I was kind of sad. I think Will said they slipped in the 11:30 service, and I think he said basically I sounded more like you Sunday. I think he's basically said I was a little tough. He said you're always tough.
I think that's unfair, but okay. I'm a teddy bear.
In the 11:30, in particular, I'm not sure why in particular for 11:30, but I was pretty passionate about, if you're disconnected, it's because you've chosen to be. Mm-hmm. But in particular in that service, I know that there's people who slip in. I just said, hey, maybe you slip in while the first song's playing. You slip out during the invitation. Nobody knows your name. You get sick. Nobody knows you're in the hospital. Right. You're not in a small group. And I mean, you can come here and be disconnected and mean to, and you're not belonging.
That's right.
You're just here. So you can do that, but you can do that anywhere.
Right.
It's not. Don't blame that on a big church.
Right. It's not the fact that we're a mega church that you're disconnected.
Nothing to do.
It's your problem.
So people can say church is getting too big. That's a cop out. Mm-hmm. Crock.
Okay.
I'll stop right there. All right. That's a joke.
That's all I'm saying. Is that a sin? No.
Because people can say whatever they want to. They can make excuses all day long, but if you want to be connected in this church, you can be, with 5,000 people, 8,500 members. I'll be honest. You want to know the lead pastor in a personal way, you can.
Yeah.
You want to take me to lunch, you can, 100%. And so that's I can't say that about every church with 8,500 members.
Yeah.
But I can tell you that about this. Any campus pastor, same way. We're a weird church. I really do think we're a very odd church. So belonging is not here. I believe it is kind of in a really strange way. It is not about you getting what you think you deserve. Mm-hmm. I think if that's what people think, then they're never going to find happiness in a church, because you're never going to find a church that's perfect. If you're trying to seek satisfaction in what your expectations are of a church, a pastor will always let you down. A church will always let you down. The nursery will never be perfect. Somebody will always get it wrong. They'll be out of something. They won't change your baby's diaper. Something.
Yeah.
There'll be something happen eventually. We're going to mess it up. People are imperfect. So flawed systems are gonna fail you. Flawed people are going to fail you. So if we're going to find belonging and satisfaction in a fellowship, it's got to be that we're connected to Christ. So I just wanted to read John 15 real quick, part of it. I'm the true vine. My Father is the vine dresser. Jesus said, every branch in me that does not bear fruit, he takes away. Every branch that does bear fruit, he prunes, that it may bear more fruit. If you go all the way down, is it John 15:5? I am the vine, you are the branches. We actually sang this song Sunday. Abide. Whoever abides in me and I in him, he it is that bears much fruit. For apart from me, you can do nothing. I think there's something to be said about belonging, not being that we abide with each other, but that we abide in him.
That's right.
So the branches all attached to him, and when we're all attached to him, we belong together.
That'd
be my quick.
Yeah.
And that way, it's not about us getting what we want. It's us giving him us. Yeah. If that makes sense.
That's so good. Yeah. That's great. Hayden, would you add to that?
Yeah, it's what he said in Ephesians 2, like we're the dwelling place of God. So like if you remove a brick from the side of a building, like it's noticeable, you know? And I mean, if he's the cornerstone, he's the foundation, and like we're the dwelling place of God, like if we're building up that house, you can come home. And I think too, kind of going back to what you're saying, I said this Sunday, but there's a lot of places you can go in our society and have not so great of an experience, and you're probably going to go back, you know? Like
right.
There are supermarkets and stores around that like I go to all the time, but I've never left super refreshed, you know, never.
And you still go back.
I still go back. But I think in the church, a lot of people have had a bad experience and may have had true hurt from people. and they've taken that one time to say, I'm never going to go back to that, or I'll just slide in on Sunday morning and never be known. But yeah, the invitation that he gives is you can belong to a people. And then what we want to do is we want to center it on the word. So you're not just coming to find a good small group leader with a great personality or charismatic. We want to just get you in a room in the word with people, and there might be people in the room that you don't have anything in common with, but you know Jesus, and they become family.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's the invitation. You can be known, have people in your corner that are going to push you towards the Lord, and
Absolutely,
that's the joy of it.
I think some of the problem is that people come in only looking to consume, and God may have put them in the room to be what they need, even for other people, you know. And so they come in, they look around, this church doesn't have what I need. And they never stop to consider, well, maybe God brought you to this church to be what is needed,
Absolutely.
you know. So it's just a consumeristic mindset that I think we need to get out of.
And some people actually come in and all they do is give for a while, and they don't really receive.
Yeah.
And they
Which
get
is a
burned
recipe
out.
for disaster.
Burnout is like a big deal, and so sometimes people need to
Be refreshed.
really be aware of balance in that. Slow, you know, and anyway, that's something to be aware of.
Hey guys, this was super fun. We've gone on for about 45 minutes. We've talked about DJT. We've talked about James Tallarico, Ephesians. Looking forward to the next couple weeks, the next few months of our church. Is there anything that super excites you, that you're looking forward to? I'll go first. I'm really looking forward to the summer transition at Haywood into the convention center. I'm expecting God to do big things, and I'm praying now that God would do big things. Yeah.
I'm excited to see how Jesus is going to change downtown Greenville. I mean, Sunday was just different. It was there was a zeal and an excitement and an expectancy to encounter God, and I'm just excited for this
That's
Sunday.
awesome.
Yeah.
That's great. I don't know how to really say this because I feel like this is like almost that 6 months before
Right.
anything, because I don't even know what it is yet. But I do think we're kind of in the beginning stages of development and planning for some stuff that could be the next 5 years
I
kind
agree.
of thing. And I know we've been talking about it a good bit. But I think I've said we're icing our arm if we're a major league pitcher.
Yeah.
If you're a sports person, you know that. You
Getting ready for the next
take
season.
a couple days off. I think that God's really preparing us for something even more amazing than we've ever been through. So that's undefined, but yet really super exciting to me.
Yeah. We'll keep doing it. Just one more at a time. All right. You guys charge on. See you next time.